So everything that's happened since I've come to Ananda Village, or even since I went to the first Sunday service, everything has conspired to teach me how to be happy, okay? So there's, I go to yoga classes. I go in the yoga classes, you learn how to release tension from your body consciously. Energization, how to tense and release. That's amazing. I used to work at a public school, and situations would come up. And I experimented when I first learned energization to go and rock out of the classroom. There's another teacher. I'd energize, I'd come back in, and for some reason it's like a shield that protects you from getting a direct hit from crazy energy that might be happening. So that taught me a lot. Affirmations. I practiced affirmations while I worked in the classrooms. I worked in the schools at Ananda Village for many years and worked with different ages. So I just remember at one point asking the students to remind me to do my affirmation mentally, or ask them to remind me to do a repeating mantra. And I just told them, I'm going to be happier if I do this, and you guys will be happier that I'm happier. So we worked together. So those are some things I've practiced in my life. Other things I've practiced is just taking walks, just being in nature, feeling some peace, being in silence. Seclusions are great. If I ever have a big question about life, I like to go into seclusion until I find the answer. And usually I don't have to go for more than a week. But and then I'll get some kind of answer, like, the idea of how do you know? How do you know if you're doing God's will? I remember I came across this time where I said to someone, well, I thought I was doing God's will. And they said, people don't know when they're doing God's will. They just do their own will and they call it God's will. And that really confused me. So I went into seclusion, and then by the end, I had found a spiritual teacher. Like in a book, I read something about how do you know you're doing God's will? And the answer was, you're doing God's will if you're doing something while you're thinking of God. And I was like, whoa, okay. So learning how to think of God all the time is a practice. It's a hard practice. But over time, like at this point in my life, I just try to talk to God all the time. Like, God, can you just be here? Are you here? I know you're here. So you can drive the car, because I don't want to drive. So you just try to have this ongoing conversation. Sometimes I forget that he's around, and I forgot to invite him to play badminton with me, but then I remember, and I'm much better. So whatever he's doing through me is great. I'll share something that I got from my mom that I used recently. And that's the idea of sort of handing things off to God right away. You say, before you do anything in the day, you say, I'm going to do this for God, with God, and because through the grace of God. And because she was Catholic, she would say, you do for God, with God, through the grace of God. And I sort of took that on because I was scared of making mistakes. And one day I asked her, what if I make a mistake, a big mistake? And she says, well, this is what you do. And when you do this, you don't make a mistake. And I came to realize that you can make mistakes, but if you learn from those mistakes, it's not a mistake. So things like that sort of take the pressure off and help you be happy. The other thing that I practice, and we practice a ton in this community, is being serviceful. Just thinking about the other person and not thinking about yourself. You know, the more I realize that people who have lived in community for a long time and are sort of my sort of mentors, because I just look at them and say, I want to be like them. And I started to evaluate them, and I said, they're sort of, what do they do? And one thing they do is they keep the conversation off of themselves. So I'll try to talk to them about them, like, what are you up to? And they say, oh, well, I'm doing this and this and this. How have you been? And they quickly flip it. And I thought, wow, that's a great attitude, is to a great habit to think of others more than you think of yourself.
Acceptance is a very important part of spiritual progress. To help with acceptance, we will practice an affirmation by Swami Kriyananda. I accept with calm impartiality whatever comes my way, free in my heart. I am not conditioned by any outward circumstance. More softly. I accept with calm impartiality whatever comes my way, free in my heart. I am not conditioned by any outward circumstance. In a whisper, I accept with calm impartiality whatever comes my way, free in my heart. I am not conditioned by any outward circumstance. And now mentally, I accept with calm impartiality whatever comes my way, free in my heart. I am not conditioned by any outward circumstance.